Hey there, new types. We've got ourselves a fun one here and a bit of a revival of an older deck on the channel. We've got plenty of ramp options in Gundam right now and not too many cards that take advantage of it. However, you can put the two that really benefit from it in the same deck with pretty great synergy. I enjoyed playing this one quite a bit, and I suspect you might as well. Shout out to my local game store and the community of players that allow me to record these matches and enable me to post them on YouTube for you all to see. I'd also like to direct your attention to the various content creators on YouTube that I happen to enjoy frequently. They're all talented and hardworking and bring a variety of content to the space that I think you'll enjoy. If you have the chance, please give their channels and videos a view. They will be linked in the description below. Likewise, if you happen to like what you're seeing here, please consider giving the video a like and the channel a subscribe. We're on our way to 1,000 now, and I'd love to see it grow. Any questions, feedback, or banter you have, please feel free to leave them in a comment below. I love to read them, and I do my best to reply to every single one. However, I think that's enough yapping. It's time to go big or go home. Mission start. All right, so we are getting started over here. I roll myself a 6, and my opponent, I believe, was 10 or 11. Definitely higher than me, so he does opt to go second. And using some clues here, I see he's got Hero and Relina sleeves. Therefore, I'm assuming Wing, which does shape my hand decision. I see a Mining Asteroid, a First Contact, a Gira Zulu, and a pair of level 4 kshatriyas, and I decide this is totally fine. So I lay down my 6 shields, and my opponent does opt to mulligan. Opponent lays down his shields, and we're about to get this party started. So I draw a card, play my resource down, and pass the turn. The card I drew was wingzero. Opponent plays his own resource and passes the turn. I drew a First Contact off the top, I believe. But I decide I want my mining base down just to see what other cards I can build towards. Turns out I get another mining base out of that for my troubles. However, with 2 First Contacts, I am pretty much into a ramp game plan. Opponent plays down to low, passes the turn. I drew a bird mode off the top, so I play it down. Might as well get a body on board. And then I pass my turn. Opponent spends 3 and plays a First Contact. And then passes his turn. I drew a full frontal, I believe. Yes, full frontal. So I play my own First Contact down. I do get a question on the side, so I am answering it and running on autopilot here. I take a swing at his base. He thinks it's 3 damage. I will correct him next turn. And I'm also slow to put my resource down, my First Contact resource down. So sorry for the sequencing of plays here, guys. It wasn't very clean. So my opponent is at 6 resources. I am as well, having ramped 1 more than him. He plays the Age and discards a card, draws a card, and plays down an EX resource. So he is ramping as hard as I am. Plays a bird mode and really decides to up his count. This is where I do mention that his base should only have 2 damage on it and is not gone. He passes the turn to me. I get a close combat here. I take a swing at his base. He lets me have it. Play down that other first contact that's in my hand, and we ramp to 8. Really hoping for a neozeong soon. But that wingzero in my hand is looking pretty cash money. I pass the turn. Opponent plays down a Peace Million, which does confirm for me he is on wing. Plays a Show of Resolve, which is, nice because he does get card advantage out of it, which can make my game going long a little difficult, but I do feel like I have a better long game than he does because of neozeongs being in my deck. My opponent does decide to throw 4 damage into my mining asteroid instead of taking out my bird mode. He plays another first contact using one of his EX resources just to do it, I think. And then passes over to me. I drew a second wingzero, so I'm really quite liking my hand the way it looks right now. I make a swing at his Peace Million. He decides to let it through. So I follow up with a wingzero. I wipe my own bird mode and his 3 units. And then just pass my turn here. My opponent plays 2 Shenlongs. Level 5 Shenlongs. Passes the turn back to me. I draw Sharzaku 2. And I am debating here whether I go wide and bait out a wingzero or just kind of play conservatively, try to aim for a neozeong, see what he throws out to the board to commit, whether or not he wants to take out my wingzero that desperately. I have a nice fat hand and a lot of options, so I am more or less inclined to let this wingzero die if my opponent really wants to commit into it. Talking about that bird mode, how it actually got a surprisingly decent amount of damage and work in for what it was, and how he was saying he should have probably blocked with that Salute. I do take out his Peace Million with my wingzero. I play down my Sharzaku 2, and here I just pass the turn. Opponent takes out my mining asteroid with a Shenlong. Plays a wingzero, kills my Zaku 2, and deals 3 damage to each of his Shenlongs. My Zaku 2 trigger lets me pull out a Kshatriya from the top 3 of my deck. I don't mind seeing that because now it does give me an out to taking out some of his units. So he actually opts to take out my shield with his Shenlong. He is putting it on me to have answers for his board now. And I do have the full frontal and kshatriya in hand, so if I want to kill his wingzero, I have 2 damage from that. It would also let me take out a Shenlong. However, he does opt to take out my wingzero, which is what I was hoping for him to do, putting 5 damage onto his own wingzero, which then lets me close combat it, putting it to 7 damage, and that makes my kshatriya and Girazulu option live. However, my best possible option does come from the top of my deck, and it's a pretty easy play. It is the neozeong, which is going to allow me to wipe his board. Just showing him the kshatriya that I got out of my Sharzaku. Play my neozeong, dealing 3 damage to his wingzero. I then link my full frontal, use the on-pair ability to play out the Gira Zulu, which will deal 1 damage to his Shenlong, and then from the neozeong trigger, 3 to his other. And that allows me to clear the board. I play down a mining asteroid, get myself a neozeong again, and now we're really ready to start. Take out one of his shields, and I prepare to more or less take over the game entirely next turn. My opponent doesn't have a lot of cards in hand, so his options are a little limited, and that's kind of what I was hoping for at the tempo of this game. I happen to have 5 in hand, feeling pretty good about it considering so many of them will just trigger off of neozeong in the first place. And I can hand dump next turn if I want to. He plays a wingzero down, dealing 3 to my Gira Zulu. Plays down Hero. Takes a swing, but then realizes it's not enough damage to kill. So he does think about that again and realizes, yeah, we're just going to bounce off of each other here. Because I won't be able to kill him either, but at this point, taking so much damage on his wingzero and not killing my neozeong just puts him at a very, very scary clapback next turn. He has no idea I have another neozeong in hand, of course. So he takes a swing at my mining asteroid. Spends 2 resources, 1 EX, to play a Zelote and passes the turn. And that more or less signals to me that I have won this game from this point on, because my neozeong is still up, and I'm about to drop a second one. So I play a second neozeong. I deal 6 to his wingzero, worst case scenario for him. And then I play the level 4 kshatriya, dealing 3 to each of his units, and once again clearing his board. So I take a swing with my Gira Zulu, take a swing with my neozeong, give him a Wufei, and then I pass my turn. We're both at 10 plus an EX here. He only has 4 cards in hand, so he's not looking in a great position. Has a Zelote, has an Age, nothing to discard with it. Just 2 in hand. We know 1 is a Wufei. So I drew a first contact off the top. Not the best. I show him that. And then play the bird mode. More or less get myself another EX here, even though I don't put it down. And I deal 3 to each of his units. Take a swing. Take another swing. And then I finish the game off with the neozeong. And he shows a pair of Wufei. GG. All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed that battle. This one, I feel like, was a pretty strong showcase of the deck. We didn't get to see the Exia. We didn't really get to see Marida or Kshatriya level 5, but you did get to see basically every other card in the deck, and you got to see how wingzero leading into neozeong can very well be a game state that is hard for anyone to beat. We played against a ramp deck, so we were going pretty much on level, but as you also saw, we got to go bigger than they did. We have neozeong and wingzero in the deck, and not a lot of decks have this top end that is just nuke after nuke. And you saw when you got two neozeongs out, the game was more or less over, and that is the threat of neozeong in general. This is a deck that doesn't rely on blockers to get to the point it needs to. It also has a fair amount of ramp that should get you there for most cases. You'll notice I put in first contact where a lot of other people don't, and that is really because I do think the ramp is pretty powerful in this deck. I want Wing Gundam bird mode, and I want first contacts. I'd like to see first contacts burst, and because you will be taking hits to your shields, you should hopefully see close combats or first contacts in there. Naturally, that doesn't always happen. You're still high rolling in the burst, but having it as an option is really, really strong. The other thing with this deck is 4 HP is still pretty prevalent. You can see that the level 4 kshatriya, the kshatriya level 5, and the Gira Zulu all have 4 HP. The sacrificial cards don't have it. They don't really matter. They're just kind of things that are there to play down and either control the board and have some secondary benefit, right? Bird mode gets you the ramp. Exia gives you some ability to kill aggro. And Zaku 2, I think, is pretty good in this deck. I know people don't like the idea of hitting a pilot and whiffing, but you do have a fair amount of hits in the deck. So usually you should be able to dig a kshatriya or a neozeong out of it and feel pretty good. It also will trigger off of a neozeong, and that's always nice. Now, the rest of the deck is pretty straightforward, but I do want to point out the Gira Zulu, and you did get to see it in action in this gameplay where I had my neozeong out. I was able to play the Gira Zulu. I was able to deal 3 damage and 1 damage to clear out 2 separate units that had already been damaged. But that comes up a lot, and I think that is super relevant in this game right now where you want to be able to play your neozeong and for a relatively cheap body, deal as much damage to the board as possible. You'll also notice how I utilized close combat and kept it around a lot. I could have used it earlier. There were times where it was possible, and maybe I wanted to clear out the Zelote early or something like that. I think what you're trying to really do is maximize your potential with neozeong and Wing Gundam Zero. And close combat is a card that hits anything you need it to, so it's got a lot of utility. Improved technique, not so much. Also, the slots just weren't there, and I'm aiming to go big entirely with the way this deck is built. I think that you can go a little bit different with the units. Kshatriya and Marida are possible to drop if you really want to. I have run a version of this deck with Duo and Death Scythe. I don't really love it. I think that Kshatriya with Marida and Full Frontal is still where you want to be. The level 4 kshatriya with the marida pair does help you a lot, keeping down aggro early on, and lets you basically play into the game where you're just trying to hit that level 6 ramp or wingzero, and then usually surviving those extra turns to play the neozeong with full frontal and playing out another unit and finishing the board off, and then hoping you can snowball from there like you saw in the video. But this is a pretty straightforward deck, so there isn't much reason to yap too much more. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comments below. Otherwise, I will see you in the next one.